Good afternoon. You are welcome to our bi-weekly seminar, but this time around, you can see we are doing a bit of back-to-back because we had a guest presenter that we did not factor into our presentation, but we had to make her present to us because she was visiting and was going back to her country, which she has actually returned to her country, our PhD student from Austria. So that's why we are having this. But after this very presentation, we shall have a week break and then in 2 weeks' time, another one. So I welcome you to this bi-weekly presentation of the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies of the National Open University of Nigeria. I also send our Vice Chancellor's special greetings to you all. He is unavoidably absent, our Vice Chancellor of the National Open University of Nigeria, Professor Olufemi Peters, who is always very supportive of our center and our presentations. I just want to tell you one or two things about our center before we go on to introduce our presenter for the day. Our Center of of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies was established in February 2020 with a seed fund from TED Fund in the administration of the immediate past Vice Chancellor of our university, Professor Abdallah Uba Adamu. And since then, this center has been waxing strong, and it was pioneered by our former director, Professor Akim Tijani. Yes, he's already here online. He's always very supportive, always with us and giving us his fatherly support. And so this center has been on, and of course, it has its mandates why it was set up. And I'm going to go quickly through the mandates of this center so that we keep knowing why we are there and what we should be doing, and so that you can help us to achieve our mandates and collaborate with us as much as possible. Main mandates are to provide leverage for field-based and solution-driven research, to serve as agent of national policy for migration studies, to seek grants for academic activities and outreach for sustainability, to publish and sustain peer-reviewed academic journal and monograph series, to collaborate with stakeholders in the field and policymakers, to organize occasional seminars, conferences, and public lectures. I would want to say we are working hard to complete all these mandates to make sure that every part of it is really accomplished, and that is going to happen by the special grace of God, because we are going to connect with all those that will make us achieve all our mandates. So today is another occasion that we are going to listen to a speaker who is also very knowledgeable from another African country. Our speaker is from Burkina Faso, it's not a Nigerian. So migration is a general and global issue. All countries, all nook and crannies of the world, we have one thing or the other to do with migration. And today our speaker is Dr. Pedro Serge Noel, who is a senior lecturer and has been, after working in a secondary school for over 20 years, he came into academics and he works at the Department of History and Archaeology of Joseph Kizebo University in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. He is an historian of mobility, diaspora, and identity issues. The migration issues was at the center of his master's and doctoral thesis work. His main research areas are mobilities, diaspora, migration policies, identity issues, displacement in the context of insecurity, that is internally displaced persons and refugees, terrorism, living together. So he is widely, very much into all those migration issues. And so we are going to hear from him. He's a member of many societies, member of Laboratory of Political, Economic, Religious, and Cultural System at the Joseph Kizebo University in Burkina Faso. African Migration Laboratory, is a member of African Migration Laboratory, and that's in Côte d'Ivoire. He is an international, is involved in International Joint Research Laboratory and that is also in the African, in Africa, Europe, and America. He is an African multiple cluster of excellence in Ouagadougou, and currently he leads the project of migration control, violence, and COVID-19 in Benin and Niger. And he is also a civil society, an active member of the civil society as president of CSO. And he is also the author of many books. One of some of them have been listed here, but let me just mention a few of them. One is Ouagadougou is the author of Le Dilemme de la nationalité chez les Burkina Faso au Ghana. Anyway, these things are in French because I do realize that in this country they speak a lot of French. So don't mind if I murder the French names here. Just forgive me. And then he has another one. It's Regards Crusades sur le terrorism. I think that one has something to do with terrorism. He will explain some of these things to us later, and so on and so forth. And today, we are lucky to have him here to come and present to us about this migration issue. I think what we're having now is also like what we have had in the last two presentations about this Mediterranean Sea crossing, but he's going to now look at it from his own country. The last two speakers spoke on that topic, and they are Nigerians. Now it's good to have somebody who is not in Nigeria talk about this Mediterranean sea crossing and migration and the dilemma of the people who do all this. So we are going to listen to our speaker for about 30 minutes, maximum of 40, Doctor. So they'll give you some time. And after which, we shall make our comments and observations. Let's see whether what he's going to see and talk about this Mediterranean migration is going to be like what we have heard before, or are there some differences from their own point of view? But I believe that migration speaks the same language. So over to you, Dr. Noel. I think I'm comfortable calling you Dr. Noel, but Noel Sedge. I hope I called it right. So over to you, and you already have the co-host, so you can share your screen. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Professor. First of all, let me pay a tribute to Professor Tunde Bewaji and Professor Gloria Neto for this opportunity to converse with you. Please accept my apologies if my English level is not up to your expectation. I remember you that I'm from Burkina, where the official language is French. Okay, I have to present you the paper on migration from Africa to Europe. The title is Europe at All Costs, Never Again, 2 apprehensions about irregular migration to Europe from Africa. Let's begin with the introduction. Human mobility, including migration, is so important in the life of the human beings. Abel Chatelain says that mobility is one of the characteristics of man. Migration is such a constant phenomenon in humanity that some believe it is inherent to human nature. In Africa, international migration is mainly intracontinental, and in particular takes place within each of the 5 sub-regions of the continent. In recent years, irregular migration from sub-Saharan Africa to the Mediterranean coast of Europe has increased, underpinned by cumulative causalities that very often leads to tragedies on the migration routes. Despite these, repeated human dramas, both in the merciless Saharan desert in the North African transit countries and in the marine cemetery, that is the Mediterranean Sea, the migratory flows do not seem to dry up. Through two antinomic postures of migrant or potential migrants, we analyze the current perception of this perilous migratory flow. This is an attempt to theorize individual motivation using mainly empirical data, but also agency like IOM and NGOs reports. As a researcher on migration, and as also a leader of civil society organization fighting for migrants' rights, I met a lot of young men and women, returned migrants and transit migrants in Burkina Faso, Mali, Ghana, Senegal, and recently in Nigeria. During 2 years, I was member of a committee for the validation of the business plans of migrants returning from Sahara, North Africa, and Sicily. And these experiences helped me to write this paper. We'll present the aim of our study in three parts. At first, generalities on concepts of migration and migration to Europe from Africa. Secondly, the choice of would-be migrants and some repatriated migrants, Europe at any price. And on the third position, the poster of non-migrant and lesson learned by repatriated migrant who endured the southern desert and Mediterranean Sea, who said never or never again. As the generalities on the concept of migration, let me say that mobility is the first concept. And talking about mobilities, it's to talk about internal and external migrants, talk about refugees, internally displaced persons, and migration also. So we can say that migration is one of mobilities, but all mobilities are not migrations. And to give a definition of migration, you can say that you have migration if somebody move from a point A to a point B. Migration can be individual or collective. And to talk about migration, we have to move for installation to dwell in the point B, coming from the point A, and the duration of stay must be regarding to different schools from 6 months to 12 months. And for mobilities, we don't talk about months. And for migration, no matter of the causes, any causes can be at the beginning of the process of migration. So migration, if you take migration from the area of departure, point A, we talk about immigration, and the same migration view from the point B, the area of dwelling of arrival, we talk about immigration. And what about irregular migration? You can say that the regulator of migration is established in terms of its compliance with the law and or regulation to the host countries or to laws in communitary integrations, as ECOWAS and so on, and which the host countries are acceding. Otherwise, it's said to be irregular. So if migration is not made with compliance with laws, you can say that it's irregular migration. Donc, migration is said to be clandestine and therefore irregular when it's initiated or becomes so when, after irregular entry into the host country, the migrant loses the regularity of his or her stay in that country. For our subject of today's presentation, I'm talking about migration from Northern and Sub-Saharan Africa, so area for immigration, to Europe, area for immigration. So for a lot of migrants, the area of immigration, Africa, is seen like as a L, and the area of immigration, Europe, seen as a paradise, which is not at least a good presentation of the situation, the reality of the countries. Secondly, let's talk about patterns of irregular migration from Africa to Europe. You can say that Sub-Saharan Africa is area of immigration, and the migrant transit passed through Northern Africa, and after in Mediterranean Sea, before arriving in Europe, area of first immigration is mainly Cyprus or Italy. We can get also a pattern of irregular migration now from Northern Africa to Europe, passing through Mediterranean Sea as an area of transit. The main causes of migrations are economic causes. So the search of job or best conditions of life, the push and pull effect of migration, the demography in area of immigration. So after these economic causes, you have psychosocial reasons, which personal or regarding to community psychology. I will explain better this situation in a moment. You have also political causes of migration. It's mainly civil wars and or interstate wars, bad governance in our countries, and particular context of terrorism in some countries of the Sahelian region, like Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and so on. We have also some migration due to natural disasters, flooding, drought, volcanoes, or earthquakes. Let's see some maps of migratory routes. At first, we have, you can see here in the map, the West African road, from Senegal, Gambia, Guinea, to islands of Azores in Atlantic Oceans. We have here in yellow or orange color, West Mediterranean roads from passing through the desert of Sahara, through Mali or Niger, to Algeria and Morocco before reaching Europe by Spain, the coast of Spain. We have also another map in which we see the roads of migration from West Africa to Libya, then going to Cyprus and Italy. Let's see another map in which we can see the Central Mediterranean roads with a lot of roads with join all these roads from in Central Mediterranean routes goes through Libya before reaching Europe by Sicily and Italy and Cyprus. Here, another map with resume all the roads. This is the western routes from West Africa to Spain. Here is the central routes from West Africa to Libya and Europe. And here the eastern routes from Ethiopia, Sudan, Eritrea, Somalia to Egypt, Libya, and Europe. So all these maps shows that there is a lot of migratory routes from Africa going to Europe, passing through Sahara, the desert of Sahara, and the Mediterranean Sea, and reaching Europe by Spain, Cyprus, or Italy. Let's talk now about the choice of would-be migrants and some repatriated migrants who want to reach Europe at any cost, any price. At first, let's talk about the responsibilities of migrants themselves. Part of the African youth perceives Africa as a hell and Europe as a paradise. They dream of life in Europe and they value Africa. Alidou, a young Senegalese I met, said that I will go to Europe even if it's only to live there for a few months, rather than living in Africa in my current conditions. And for Alidou, his condition of life, of living in Africa was bad, and he's ready to go to Europe at any price. We have also the blatant lies of migrants who reach Europe. They lie about their real living conditions and encourage young men to try the adventure of migration to Africa, to Europe. The following are examples of such lies. You have flattering photos. You have some migrants who take pictures, photos of themselves near beautiful cars, who seems to be their own cars, or publications on social networks showing that they are in good conditions of living in Europe. But all of these photos and publications are wrong. It's not true information. We have also informed decision-making. Many young people go into regular migration without knowing the dangers of these migrations. Peter, a Ghanaian, said that if I had been well informed, I would not have undertaken this perilous journey. And but before his experience on the desert and the Mediterranean Sea, he want to reach Europe at any price, because Africa is hell for Ghana. It's hell for Peter, and Europe is like El Dorado. We have also, as reason of this choice of to migrate to Europe, the taste of adventure and risk justified by the attitude of some migrants despite the dangers of the migration routes leading to Europe. For these migrants, and this explanation is full of fatalism. They say that those who dead in the desert, on the sea, it's written by God that one day they will dead in these conditions. And if that it's not the same for them, there is no reason for them to die in the desert or in the Mediterranean Sea. So they are how to say, they want to reach Europe at any price, and sure that they will not dead in desert on the sea. So Salifou, for instance, from Mali, said that if something happens to me, it's my fate. God has foreseen this. So for Salifou, until he met death somewhere in his migratory routes, is for him there is no reason for him to die, if God don't said that you have to die in these conditions. Let's talk about responsibility of migrants, families, and communities. We have a lot of positive social perceptions of migrations. In many African societies, mentalities are favorable to migration. We have sentences like, you don't get rich at home. That means that nobody, if it is difficult to be rich, staying at home, and if you want to be rich, you have to go abroad, out of your living place, to get money. To get rich, go abroad. It's likely the same idea. The foolish thing is to dwell in a place that brings you only misfortune. This is a social perception is a lobby groups. Lobby are ethnic groups living in Burkina, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire. So for these people, if you are living in a place and you are not happy, you have a lot of misfortunes, you have to go abroad. If you don't go abroad, you are not normal person, you are foolish. It's a foolish thing to say in your place. Welcome is better than good sitting, home life. So this sentence means that it's better if people tell to you, welcome or welcome back, that if they say good sitting, because you are in a place and don't go anywhere, even if you are not happy in your life. Donkeys gives birth so that a back can rest. So this sentence is explaining that parents give birth to their children, and after that, children have to take care of parents. So it's not normal for these children, if the conditions are not good, to stay without doing abroad. We have also too heavy symbolic and real burden placed on the shoulders of their children by some parents. Some parents, it's give a lot of burden, charge to their children. So if they become old, they think that their children have to take care of them. And popular wisdom sums that it's by saying that when someone fed you until your teeth grows out, in return, you have a duty to feed him or her until there's a fall down. Father of an irregular migrant said, I'd rather hear that you did on the way to Europe than to see you every day without work and without money. A mother of irregular migrants said also, looking back, I realized that I was partly responsible for my son's death in the Libyan desert by the charge, the burden she placed in son. Let's go ahead and talk about the responsibility of African governments in the point of view of these migrants. Many African governments are failing to create the condition for employability of a significant proportion of youth. And this is for them economic causes of migration from Africa to Europe. Those in power are accused of not providing enough information on the danger of irregular migration and the channels for regular migrations. They are also accused of not negotiating with rich countries to grant large numbers of entry of visas to go normally with the regular conditions into European countries. Let's now talk about the posture of non-migrants and lesson learned by repatriate migrants who endured the Saharan Desert and the Mediterranean Sea. They said never or never again. At first, the posture of non-migrants, never. When young people are informed about the danger of irregular migration, they do not take risks. It's for example, the effect of seeing dead bodies in the desert, shipwrecks on the Mediterranean Sea, and the piles of shoes of the dead persons, and the cemeteries of at the edge of the ocean in Northern Africa. When young people are informed about the practice of slavery of sub-Saharan migrants by armed groups in Libya, they do not take risks. When young people are informed about the official channels for regular migration, they do not take risks also. When young people are informed about the difficult living condition in Europe, they do not take the risk of losing their money invested in the migration migratory projects. They prefer to live with difficulties in Africa rather than try to go to Europe. Charles, for example, said, I chose investing the few financial resources I have at home rather than squandering them on in uncertain migration projects. Let's see some pictures which shows the dangers of migration, of irregular migrations. At first line, it's photos of migrants in a car in the desert of the Saharan desert. This is migrants tired in the desert with a car with not ready to move again, and they are in lack of water and food, and some of them will die certainly. Here is a photo of migrants who died in the desert. Here is a photo of migrants in Northern Africa, some sub-Saharan migrants in Libya, victims of slavery. These two pictures, and at the line you have pictures of ships, goats in the sea, with a lot of peoples, goats with problems, and migrants in water, and some of them will dead, and after will be in cemeteries in northern Africa, like in the cemetery of Zarzis in Tunisia. So these photos shows that the experience of migration, irregular migration from Africa to the coast of northern Africa are not simple, and there is a lot of risks, a lot of dangers. Let's finish now with the lesson learned by repatriated migrants who endured Saharan desert and the Mediterranean Sea. Never again. The human drama in irregular migrations has turned many migrants' dreams to nightmares. Therefore, they turn back, preferring to lose the money invested in the migration projects than to lose their lives. Musa, for example, says that even to my worst enemy, I would not wish the calvary of migrants on the roads to Europe. Welcome the IOMs, voluntary returns, and socioeconomic integration programs. They also have a new belief in the possibility of making a success in one's life by staying at home and in Africa. And they say that to themselves, why should we go so far and in such conditions to seek happiness? They believe that the adventure to Europe was the biggest mistake in their lives. Convinced that the desert is unlivable, the Arabs are racist, and the Mediterranean Sea is a man-eater or a sea cemetery, they say never again. Repatriated migrants think that if someone has to live in misery, it might as well be at home with their own people. And now to finish, in conclusion, we can say that although flows have been decreasing for some times, irregular migration between Africa and Europe persists. On the one end would be immigrants, young men and women, and some repatriated migrants are willing to face perils in order to reach the so-called evenly European lands. Ill-informed, out of the taste for risk or out of fatalism, they want to reach Europe at all costs. On the other hand, informed return migrants and non-migrants are both such in safe, in ordered, and irregular migration. Those who have experience of it do not wish even their worst enemy to go through the ordeal they have endured. Those who are well informed so say that to themselves that it is not what there is. They therefore prefer to forge their future in their usual living environment. As long as there is a rich Europe next to a pure Africa, will irregular migration stop? These discussions. However, the fear of the massive invasion of Europe by Africans is a fantasy because migrants in Africa are mainly intra-Africans. So this is the end of my presentation, and thanks for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Noel said. We really appreciate this, your wonderful presentation. Even though you said your English is not so good, but you have done it, you've made it, and it's quite interesting. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Well, on my own part, I would just say I enjoyed all the quotes because they are real, and that is people really speaking up the inner feelings they have about this irregular migration. And it really shows me that we really have a lot of work to do as Africans to continue to help educate our people on the dangers of their actions when they try to cross to another mass country, in a way that the people don't want, because it's not always ending in good news. Though a few may have been lucky, but apparently from what I can see, more have been unlucky perhaps than those who are lucky. So I'll open the channel of discussion now. And I know I have my professors in the house who have listened to this presentation, and they may want to contribute to it. Apparently for me, I would say it is about the same approach that we have been having in our previous discussions, but I want my senior colleagues to kindly contribute to this presentation. Over to you, Saz and Ma. I can see Professor Kwanache. Good morning. Good afternoon, Ma. You are most welcome. And I can see Professor Bewaji. Welcome, sir. And I can see Father Reggie. Yes, he's always there. Welcome, Father. Thank you so much for being there. And so many others that I may not be able to see. But however, let us kindly contribute to this discussion. Thank you so much. So let me go over to Professor Bewaji. And then after that, Professor Kwanache. Let me go to Professor Bewaji. Okay, sir. Over to you, sir.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
The presentation showed clearly, in my view, the challenges which face our people. As he has shown, migration is a human phenomenon. And consequently, it's something that will happen one way or the other. But the challenge is when the youth of a particular society are desperate to get out. Now, in Nigeria, there are some research talking about Shakpa and Jakpa and all those things, even though I do believe that many of them are wrong-headed in terms of how they appreciate the ontology and the epistemology of what they call Shakpa and Jakpa. But it is the conditions that make those people want to live at any cost, even at the cost of their own lives. So I do appreciate the research that Professor Draogo is doing. And especially many of us are not aware of what is happening in Francophone Africa. Not having the kind of discussions across the linguistic boundaries imposed by colonialism. And, you know, I think that he has brought a very good perspective to the fore. I'm not a specialist in migration. I'm a migrant myself who, you know, who has been in this location for the last 31 years now. Consequently, I know what it means. And so when people talk about Shakpa and Jakpa, I look at them and I say they don't really understand what they're talking about, including even my own esteemed colleagues who have dabbled into the discussion. And a good friend also from the School of Oriental and African Studies, who came to Nigeria to do some research on Shakpa, you know, Elvis Imafidon, you know, and I suggest they need to look at it. Andrew, when Andrew wanted to leave Nigeria in those days, Andrew never said that he was going to leave and never come back, or that there would be no reason to come back. And there is no migrant who wants to Jakpa, regardless of whatever the conditions. So all of these, I believe, are things to interrogate. Thank you very much, Noah. And thanks for Professor Aneto, and thanks to everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Prof.
Thank you
Thanks.
for your contribution, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So Professor Helen Kwanashema, over to you now.
Hello, Director. Sorry, I'm in a noisy place and will not be able to contribute today. I'm in a very noisy place.
Okay. So let's have Professor Tijani take over now. I can see that he's back. Okay, thank you very much, ma. Professor Tijani, sir, I called you earlier on. I think you were not near your system, or you had internet challenge. We wanted you to contribute to this discussion.
Yeah, none of the above. I was actually multitasking. I was speaking at another forum on another laptop. It's a hour. Just a commitment. First, I commend the presenter, Professor Noah, for sharing knowledge. And I can only say this as an admonition to the Jakpa and all this unfolding situation that we find ourselves, that the legality of it must be, stressed. The unfortunate illegality, even in the midst of destroying self, in destroying self and wanting to destroy others, will backfire. We are witnessing it, we've seen it, and it's unfortunate. I just hope people will learn and practice what they are learning from scholars like Professor Noah and other presentation on this platform. There must be a mix of concept theories and the reality of the situation. You can legally Jakpa and understand the fact that, particularly for those of us in academia, is becoming an ugly situation whereby at a point I will be presenting a report to this important and noble gathering. But in the midst of jackpying and the narratives, we must be careful. We must digest. We must dissect individually, collectively, the storylines that a few of our people, particularly those that we know, will tell us. Some are not telling the whole truth, either in their chosen country or location, and they color things, and before you know it, you know, the ugly thing that is unfolding in academia, I must tell you this, is the fact that even when they do, they now, you know, try to present themselves as having done much in their chosen. You cannot have you can't eat it all. So, but in the midst of wanting to eat it all, I'm speaking in a parable now, but I'm not a prophet. It may sound not academic, but it's also an admonition. In the midst of wanting to have it all, they do some, I would say, fraudulent stuff, because they want it to have it here, and they want to have it over there. And looking at those people that, you know, decided to remain and follow the rules, and then because of the shame that is unfolding, they will go to any length to present to their former location. And this is me, this is what I'm doing. Whereas we just have to, at our level, you know, fact check, vet whatever being presented or discussed. Just like this paper, we put it to, for the journal, we put to plagiarism test. We must not be sentimental to the reality of policy implementation. But I'm also not a subscriber to changing the goalposts. You know, I think it's making a lot of sense to Professor Noel, despite my proverbial and not specific discourse. That's all I'll say. But I also thank you for holding and doing great, Professor Neto. It's good to see the face of emeritus professors like Professor Sogolo, our Baba, that has always been there since we started. A man that cannot be stained or tainted. Fine man, always in suit. We are copying and learning from him. But beyond that suit is a fine, refined academic, you know, record that cannot be tainted. We also have our other Baba, Professor Emeritus John Ayotunde. His own hour is even far, far, far. You are 6 hours, you know, ahead of me. You are about 7 or so, or 8 ahead of Professor Emeritus John Ayotunde Bewaji, and he's there with us. So we want to appreciate him. We appreciate others too. I could see my former Dean, Dean Additional Utman. I'm not doing a vote of thanks, but I'm just appreciating. And then Professor Kwaniche, we never really get to know each other within my, is it 2 years or a year and a half stint, you know, within NOUN. But I'm still a visiting professor. And by the way, I'm doing it gratis. I've never collected salaries anywhere in the world. Even when I returned to Nigeria, I jackpot back to Nigeria in my own story. For 8 years, I left dollar salary. I left dollar salary, and I made my contribution both in Osun as a foundation dean and a foundation deputy vice chancellor. And people thought I'm crazy. So when they see, a lot of them now see me going by, they say, oh, how did you do it? But you see, you do it with integrity, with record. It's not by coloring and mixing things up. It's by integrity and divine intervention, okay? It may not sound academic, but it's also a storyline. And the best narrative that has ever been given and published is that work of Professor Emeritus Sogolo. You have to get a copy of that in the first journal. That narrative is so instructive of the many, migrations using self. So it's beyond philosophy, as Emeritus Professor Bewaji and Sogolo, Emeritus Professor Bogoro will agree with me. It is also a learning tool for those who care to read and dissect and internalize what we read. This center is about multidisciplinary. It's so instructive. Unfortunately, not many of our people will attend, even when you do all the advert, to call them, they do this and that. It is only when they need to publish. And please, Madam Director, vet, as you always should do when you vet, when you are reviewing paper. Don't just take it for granted. A lot of things are going on that we can't be saying here, but when we do vetting, we satisfy ourselves and then we contextualize. Because the people, if you come to US, for instance, in the guise of you want to relocate, you are doing research, and they find out you are not actually doing what you said you are doing. And we've seen some of it. When a scholar cannot write a page or half a page report of what he or she has done in a year, what are you jackparing? And you can see some scholars that have done so, that even back in Nigeria, they are making dollars. They are making dollars, following the rules, not claiming I know this, I know that, So we really, is a lot of things to be discussed and to internalize. But unfortunately, the country Nigeria, the continent Africa, we have so many challenges that it's only God. And I'll pause here because I don't want to get
for that extensive remarks. Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you,
I can see, like Prof was faster than me, Professor Ganiat, the former Dean of Social Sciences. And I know that this kind of discourse, she will surely contribute.
The foundation dean.
The foundation dean, okay, of social sciences. Fantastic.
And this lady, along with us, I'm sorry to cut you, ma, won 2 grants in dollars. I was part of it. 1, 2 grants in dollars from the embassy.
Not to teach me
Madam,
how to
was I not part of it? I mean, we will be going behind, but she was our leader. She was the dean. I was just a professor. And she was not the full professor when she did it, though.
Yes, so I trust her. I trust her. She's very, very proactive.
So getting a full problem, she will japa and color everything, present fake documents.
I hope she's not japa. Don't take her along, because I'm going to present to us Professor Shijani on japa, because you have japa yourself, and we will get the presentation.
I have never japa. I have been like Professor Emeritus Sogolo, in and out.
But we are not seeing you in now. We are seeing you perpetually out. Perpetually out.
Because for 8 years, ma, for 8 years, I was on leave of absence, and I gave up. I mentioned the salary, 2011, after tax, $7,000. I took up appointment as a foundation dean at Adeleke University for about 400,000 naira. You can do the math. And I was in Nigeria for it. I was never collecting salary in US. I would never do it, because your enemies are out there. They want to fact check. And when I was about leaving now, check your HR. I told the VC, no payment for a year. I was doing this service. When they gave me this position they are occupying, no office, as you know. The current VC saw me, get to know me, walking inside the car. And they said, who is this guy? He told me himself when we work on the committee. Of course, I vied for the vice chancellorship. I didn't make it. A better candidate made it, a senior person. So that does not mean that we cannot contribute to lift him up and make sure he made a milestone. But some people will say, because, oh, it's this and that, oh, no, I didn't get. No, you move on. I told you about Professor Ganiat. She was not a professor when she was a dean. We supported her. We didn't say, oh, she's junior to me, blah, blah, blah. I have a knowledge about grants in Nigeria. I told her. We went there. She wrote the proposal. They gave her. Boom. The second time they gave her. The hidden behind the scenes story of Tedford Morgan. She just told you briefly. It was as a result of bringing Wilson to campus because of that grant. And we, by God's intervention, we planned it, and Bogoro accepted to be at that as a chairman. That the rest is history. What I have pursued for Morgan for 2 years under a lecturer one that became ES of Tedford, one Dr. Bishi. I didn't even know he was a lecturer one. That was telling me Ivy League, this and that. But God removed him. They jackpot him. And Bogoro came, and I told Bogoro, listen to David and say, oh, my brother, Prof, bring him. I say, who? He said, now. And before you know it, under COVID, we signed the MOU. Under COVID, signing the MOU, I caught COVID. People don't know what we have done. We did not do it for money. Quality to hard. You must have value when you jackpot. If you don't have a value, forget it. I've just told you about 10 people returned out of the inaugural postdoc with us. They are making dollars in Nigeria now because they did excellently well. But 7 people decide to do something and they said it's Tijani, they were. It's not Tijani now. You can't call it. I can choose not to be saying anything. I'll be making my dollars. My salary is fantastic. And I will never collect kobo from anybody. If I have collected, let them come out. I'm saying it publicly because a lot is going on in that Nigeria that we have to be careful. People come back to campus and run their mouth. They are not speaking to facts. So when you listen to them, when they present, please fact check. I'm being specific about anywhere. Please fact check.
Okay.
Don't pass anything because you know minister, no God. I've never known anybody.
Thank you, sir, for that admonition.
It's only God.
So,
thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Professor Ganiat, Ma, over to you.
Good afternoon, my director. Good afternoon, pros. My emeritus professor, you're always with us. And I want to commend our scholar from Burkina Faso for the presentation. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks.
We appreciate your coming. Yes, people want to jackpot, but even when you are going to another terrain, one should go there, represent your country well, you know, do well anywhere you have that you'll be a good ambassador of that country. And not until we leave the African shore that we can actually make it. Prof has said it, we need to just little bit of effort within Nigeria, within Burkina Faso, South Africa. People are making it. People are doing well. And but they make get-rich syndrome problem. It's always a problem, not only in the academic, but also within the nowadays youth. May God continue to be with us. Thank you so much for the presentation. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you. We are happy to have you on this platform. Thank you so much.
Also, we won't jackpot like Prof, but we'll make it here.
Amen. Amen. No, I said, Prof should show us how to do this granting thing and how to get this support so that we can pump some of it into this center. And I know he knows that he owes us that responsibility.
You have the resources, and I've just let the cat out, Professor Ganiat.
Okay, Prof, I'm coming to hold you tight.
I have shown her how to catch fish. Not, I didn't give her a fish.
Okay. How to catch fish, and 2 of you will now have double fish from left and right. Professor Tijani will show us how to catch, and Professor Gania. So we are going to be richer.
I've showed you in my. You know what? You remember what I told you when I handed over, Professor Aneto? I said they will envy you because of the in-laws. But beyond the in-laws, you will come out of.
So the work is not in-laws is what we are really. You are correct, bro.
You say, no, that is not impressed. And that's the reality. So please hold on to all those tenets. And then we publish also without cover from anybody. how we did it is little, grant here and there. And I know you can do it. The VC trusts you. You are destined to be there. Remember, you were not the first choice.
Yes, I do.
When he asked me to go and produce to name, and I went back a week after, I said, sir, I have to go. I'm enough of no salary, and I want to be taking my salary back at Morgan. So I need to go. And he said, no, Prof, TJ, he called me TJ, said, this person, no. You know, we serve on the same committee now. I say, really? I say, well, you know them, sir. Me, I only joined now 2 years ago, And he said, okay, go and look for another person. And as I was leaving that building, I saw you. I said, wait. This woman was always there, was always contributing, was there before even some professors. And I approached you. I said, you didn't know what I was approaching you for. I said, I need your CV. I need this. And to God be the glory. The moment I took it to him, he said, hey, that is the person. As if God does. It's an ordained position. And we will continue to swear higher and make.
In Jesus' name.
Irrespective of the situation. You have Professor Kwaniche, very nice woman. I've heard about.
Professor Kwaniche is a good person.
So you have everybody. You have Baba Sogolo.
Yes, I know that when I look forward, I see all my leaders, then I'm confident that nothing is going to affect me because all of you are here to lift me up. I know. Now, let us hear from our Baba. I said I'm going to allow him to speak, except there's another hand up. If none, I said he will speak before the presenter now makes his own final comments. I don't think I can see any other hand up. So, Emeritus Prof, sir, over to you to crown it all in today's presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to start with an apology that I've been away for some time. The last week, I was in Ibadan with the ES of NUC, who's one of those people I admire, and one of those who talk about me just the way you all talk. And sometimes you look at yourself and say, how can you be, you can't be luckier than this. If, I didn't know when I earned that name, but I'm always receiving these nice wishes, nice words from you all. Now, I want to seize this opportunity to congratulate, first of all, Professor Hakeem Tijani, for the role he has played in establishing this center from the beginning, and especially the role he has played in trying to make sure that when he was leaving, somebody who can sustain the place the way he did was put in place. So I congratulate Professor Tijani and also congratulate the current director, Dr. Aneto. You see, you have tried to mobilize all of us, and you think sometimes that you are calling us to enjoy something, but it is something we really truly enjoy. This kind of experience, when you have it on a regular basis, it keeps you going. So fortunate that Professor Abdallah is not in here. But what you have done is that you keep sourcing for brains, you keep sourcing for intellectuals and so forth, and then you bring them from different fields, and they are always intellectually stimulating. And today, when I saw Ghani Usman, and I said, yes, you are bringing more and more into the fold. I'm going to talk about the presenter, but this is what I really have enjoyed over the years. And also Professor Biwaji, you see. So, and I said, really, I got so many nice people. Apart from being intellectuals, they are also nice human beings. And this is, yes, nice human beings. That is very important. You see, it's very important. The day, I always remember the day we interviewed Professor Tijani, and we talked to him, and I said, this man, we must bring him to now. And we were happy. He came in. But to see what I did not know, Pros, I must confess, I didn't know that you were going to, I thought you were going to stay with us. Almost, yeah. But no, that is, you see, we all have different destinies. We have different, he had, you know, some other things that are moving him, and you have to listen to yourself. Everybody has his own plan. So even though all of us will want you to stay here, there are also many who want you to stay where you are. And I know that. All good men, you know, made it that way. I don't know whether BYG has left, but let me not spend the whole time on ourselves. Let me go to the lecturer. You see, each time I see a francophone, that is a French-speaking presenter, using English to do a presentation, and it does it in such a way that you are able to follow the way Dr. Noe has done, I get marveled. Because you see, it's not easy to navigate between two languages.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is what he's doing. And so when you do that, and you still carry the intellectual message, then you know that this is a scholar. And that is what he has done.
He's a very brilliant man.
Thanks, bro.
Yes,
thanks.
He is. And I was able to watch, see, those of us in philosophy, BYG, you know that. What he has, when he starts referring to sayings, adages, proverbs, and so forth, which refer to an ethics, the ethics of the society is talking about, the African ethics, a lot of things that are critical when you begin to talk about the mindset of our people, the African mindset, the African ethics. What is it that moves us into action? What is it that guides us into action? And we're beginning to talk about our youths. Why will an African prefer to leave home and begin to search for somewhere he's not too sure of? That's one question. The other question is, why will his whole society, his community, his parents think that is worth doing? That if you do not, for instance, then you are wasting your time. You know, one of the proverbs he gives, that is, why will you stay with us? All right, go out. And you refer to other, go and let anything happen to you. They're not going. Now, this is central to the kind of ethics you think if you're talking about African ethics. Yeah, and it's worth examining. Is that truly a reflection, or is it a bastardization by our own material orientation? So African ethics has a lot that we can study, and Tijani, you know that historically, you always refer to some of these things. Now, I enjoyed your presentation, Dr. Noe.
Thanks.
It was
Thanks,
brilliant.
bro.
Yes, coming across, linguistically to be able to articulate this idea. I congratulate you. But you need to do more and more research in this way. We hope that we can get you again to present to us, because it always gives us a new perspective. And finally, Dr. Neto, you must continue to do this. I have been away for some time, and from now on, I hope I won't miss any of these.
I pray so, sir. We missed you. We miss your
Yes.
absence.
Professor Kwanashi, I really have not met you, but I've been reading you, I've been hearing you about you and so forth. So I thank everybody, and I will continue to be on this, meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
sir.
Prof. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Professor Kwanashi said she's in a noisy.
Yes, she couldn't talk. That's
yeah,
right.
she couldn't talk.
Yes,
So I guess she must have heard you.
Yes,
so let's
yes.
give our presenter.
No, she came on just now. I saw her, yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We'll give our presenter the opportunity to
To
respond
speak
to all
thank
these
you.
comments. So over to you, Dr. Noel, for your comments. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Prof. Thanks for all your comments. I make my thesis on migration from Burkina to Ghana. So I tried to speak and read in English. And I began presentation in English in Rhodes University in South Africa with Professor Bewaji.
Okay.
And he gives me the opportunity to know Professor Aneta and to have this second presentation in English. And thanks for your congratulations. I will go ahead and try to be as well as good in French and in English. And for these the studies on migration and opportunity to discuss with colleagues of other area of science. I'm ready. I want to look to Anglophone Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana, and all opportunities will be welcomed by me. And I don't know if there is any question I have to answer. It's mostly appreciations of my presentation. I don't know if I miss any question.
Can I just ask you a question?
Do
you really think there's a conflict in terms of ethical principles in what is really happening in terms of the new Japa, try to migrate, which has become part of our own, ethics, or is becoming part of our ethics? Is there a conflict?
A conflict between?
Conflict,
what and what?
What I mean is the conflict in terms of traditional values. Is that truly African? That an African parent or an African community will want one of their son and to migrate in search of something else, even when it means, losing his life or her life.
There is a conflict. There is a conflict, but the situation is changing because 2 years ago I was in Senegal for a conference of civil society organizations, and one mother said that beg European leaders to help parents because they don't want to see their children dying in the sea or in the desert. So they know now that the conditions of irregular migration are bad, and it's not the same condition that migration from, for instance, Burkina to Ghana or Benin to Nigeria. If a migrant have to cross desert or to cross the sea, there is a lot of dangers. And they prefer now, they are preferring to see their sons and daughters with them in Africa, in the location, living poorly, than seeing them losing their lives in desert in the sea. But it is a change, but it's not at every part of Africa. In some countries or in some societies, this change is going on because of informations they see in the social networks and televisions. But those who don't see such informations are in the previous mentality and want money at all price, and talking if that then when something wrong or bad comes, it's because God decided that it must be like that. So there is conflict, but with informations, with the job of civil society organizations and governments and academics, as I think that we will get less deaths in deserts and in the sea. But
Director, if you don't mind, I want to ask Professor Tijani about the question whether this ethics is close to what happened during the slave trade in Africa. You know, because something happened then, you know, Africans were being drafted, taken away, you know, although by force. They were being taken away. But some of our traditional rulers, all right, actively participated in drafting their relations, in encouraging some of them, all right, to, you know, to follow the explorer, the slave traders, the conquerors, to follow them, all right. So, Professor Tijani, I don't know whether you are...
Yeah, the issue of whether we talk about the transatlantic slave trade or the trans-Saharan slave trade or the Indian slave trade that preceded transatlantic, the issue of morals and ethics was less functional. It was more of a capitalist, profit-oriented venture that the whole essence of African brotherliness, or brotherhood rather, or sisterhood, was jettisoned. It was more about the profit to be made by the slave dealers. Sadly, I'll give the narrative about Lagos Island, because I'm from Lagos Island. And then at 1850, all the way to 1861, when the British declared Lagos Island and other adjoining territories as a colony, there was a rivalry between two princes, Kosoko and Akintoye. One that supported the British, former slave dealers that now turn around and see the morality of, you know, and the so-called value of ensuring that the slaves were no longer being transported through the Atlantic, but remain in a different part of Africa, Lagos in this case. But it was for profit. It was to ensure that the palm kernel the other means, the agricultural produce they needed as at that period, as a change resulting from machines taking over the role of men, okay, to produce all these, manufactured goods, came to play. And what happened was that they supported, Akintoye, and Akintoye was labeled as a slave dealer. So you can see the changing climate and the situation. And eventually, because of their own higher level of weapon to fight the war, they dislodged the king, that is Kosoko, from the palace in Alegongo in Lagos Island. How do I come into this? My great grandfather happens to be an Abagbon chief. Abagbon chiefs are the 4th class of chiefs in Lagos Island. And the Abagbons are warlords. Okay, they are warlords. And he occupied the area that is called Kakawa. The Kakawa compound is not far from the lagoon. And he fought on the side of Kosoko. So he had to leave. But the consequences of fighting on the side of Kosoko, and all of them, upon defeat or seeing the defeat upcoming, ran to Ekpe, which is another coastal town. They lost most of the land. In the case of our own family, the only family house you can see in Lagos Island was the Kakawa compound. When you see Central Bank, Post Office, PZ, Ministry of Finance, Custom and Exercise Office, Methodist Church, Cathedral, CMS, those were land belonging to Kakawa. But because he did not follow the new ethics, the new morality imposed by the British, and he chose to follow his king, Kosoko, lost almost everything, except for that compound with 3 entrances that was allowed. And then maybe some of his farmland outside Lagos Island. So there's always a changing attitude, morale, ethics. It depends on the political situation, in my opinion, as well as the economic, benefit of such enterprise. When we fast forward, the Arabs, even when we backdated, the Arabs that traded through the transatlantic slave trade, were doing it for the profits, notwithstanding the odious, terrible going through the Sahara. The Sahara used to be a fertile grain pasture before, at least 2nd century before Christ, according to archaeological excavations. But how it changed to become a sandy area, something that those that are against climate change will have to rethink and have their historical consciousness to say that this is real, okay? But it was for profit. It was a capitalism at best. And the person speaking, his great-great-great-grandpa was a slave dealer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Dr. Okay, sir.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry for.
No, it's all right, sir. It's part of at least general knowledge. At least we're able to hear the history from a Lagosian himself.
Very nice. You see, you must always listen to historians.
Yes.
Because they have so much to, and you learn from them. Everything you say.
Yes. Some of us did history in secondary school. It was not beyond that level. But I don't know whether they still do history these days. I am not sure.
They are
they actually have been able to reintroduce history into the public school. I thank you for
they have. Yes.
And I must tell you that I was the vice president of the Historical Society of Nigeria when Dr. Ambassador Gottno Igali was behind the scene helping us. He helped us. People don't know that.
That's good. That's
For
good.
it.
Yes.
Igali was one of the first set of University of Port Harcourt with Wike and Goodluck Jonathan. And he read this. So he understood.
I know that. I know that.
So
director, take over your.
Yes.
Sorry.
So I won't listen to this interesting conversation this afternoon, even though we are very few, but I think it has been quite engaging and enlightening. So we really thank everyone for their contributions here and there, and especially the presenter, all the way from Burkina Faso, to adding a good light to this our discussion, because I mean he did a good job. We really appreciate you for your time and for sharing your knowledge with us. Okay, I can see Professor Bewa. 1 minute, sir. Yeah.
Yes, I came back from South Africa last night. And, it was only because I woke up early and I saw Professor Ouedraogo's message to me that I was able to join. I would ask that the center please remember the mailing list, that is the list of persons. Maybe that's why the attendance was a little bit low. Maybe people didn't know. So I just decided I would join, because when he sent the thing to me, I then looked at the clock and I found that it would be starting in about 20 minutes, and I made myself available. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Okay, sir. I don't really know if you are no more on that list, the virtual seminar group. If you are not, sir, then we may need to add your phone number, because we always send it. I think this is the 3rd time I'm sending it. This very presentation on that list. It's now my turn to add Dr. Nuer's name to that platform. Okay. It's no more there. Maybe we now, I don't know, sir, maybe I get your phone number again. So thank you very much, everyone. I think
thanks a lot.
Call it a day. We're going to call it a day, and we continue our conversation on the platform.
Okay.
Thank you and have a nice day.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Bye.